Sarah had just moved out of her mom's house. She was 24 and was a single mom to a 4-year-old little girl. Sarah had lost hope in the city she had grew up in and wanted something better for her daughter. She decided to move out of state. She had a job offer at a grocery store, and she would start as soon as she settled in. Sarah packed lightly for herself and Amy. She was looking forward to the drive across California and into northeastern Nevada. The change of scenery would do them good. Sarah had planned the drive to go through Sequoia National Forest, somewhere she had always wanted to go to. They arrived to their rental home, which was located just outside the southern tip of the forest. They had dinner, and Amy fell asleep watching a movie. Sarah had an uneasy feeling. She kept looking out through the curtains towards her car. She made sure everything was locked, every door and window. She clicked her car's lock button over and over, listening to her car beeping about 10 times. Sarah took little Amy to the bedroom and Sarah sat up next to her, reading a book. Not 10 minutes later, Sarah heard a strange sound by the front door. Her body went into full alert mode and sprung out of bed and walked towards the entrance. She stood in silence and heard a weird rustling sound just outside the door. She heard it once more, and then a deep moan and hard breathing. She bent down and crawled over to the window so she could peek outside. Just as she pinched the window curtain, the front door started shaking desperately, and the moans got louder and higher pitched. Sarah peeked and saw a dark figure, but couldn't make out much of it since it was so dark outside. She couldn't see much in that angle, but whatever it was, kept trying to open the door. Sarah crawled over to her purse and grabbed her car's key fob. She held the alarm button down until her car started beeping loudly outside. She heard the door get slammed one last time. Sarah ran to check on Amy, and she was still asleep. Sarah was full of adrenaline and definitely not sleepy anymore. She grabbed her book, turned all the lights off for Amy, and sat in the living room with her book by a dim floor lamp. She reached out to a table where she had placed her car fob. She pushed her car's lock button about 8 times and heard each beep outside. A moment later, she heard a faint tapping sound against glass. Sarah walked around the rental house and heard the tapping sound coming from the bedroom. She stood next to the door and slowly pushed the door open. She heard Amy shuffle around in the bed and then the tapping sound once more. She finally peeked into the room and looked towards the window. She saw a shadow standing by the window, but it wasn't animal-like. This shadow was human-shaped, but it was hard for Sarah to believe it to be an actual person. Sarah stared at the figure standing outside the window and then stumbled around a bit. She felt her stomach clench up and her heartbeat speed up. She then felt a hot gust of wind blow into her face, and then the figure vanished into the darkness and was gone. Sarah ran to the living room, grabbed her purse, packed up everything they had brought into the rental home as quickly as possible. She strapped everything on and then went to grab her daughter. Amy, still asleep, held on to her mother's neck and fell back to sleep. Sarah rushed outside, threw all their belongings into the driver's seat and sat Amy down in her booster seat. She started the car and drove off the rental property without hesitation or regret. It was now midnight and Sarah had nowhere to go but north towards Nevada. She was a bit upset she wouldn't be able to explore the forest with her daughter, but they wouldn't be so far from it once they settled in Nevada. Sarah hopped on the freeway and headed north. About an hour later, Sarah had to stop for gas and, if it was safe, maybe take a nap for a bit. The road was making her drowsy, and the glass of wine she had during dinner wasn't helping. Sarah found the next gas station, and as she filled the tank, she heard a faint sound right next to her ear. She turned and all she saw was darkness and a faint landscape all around her. The road was barely lit, and then she saw another car heading her way. It was an old pickup truck, and it pulled into the gas pump right behind her. She saw an old man stumble out and walk into the convenience store. She followed him with her eyes all the way inside the store. He never even looked up. She felt an eerie presence and got in her car. Just before she drove off, she heard a light tapping sound. She looked up and saw the old man right beside her window. She jumped in her seat and shrieked, then looked back at Amy through the rearview mirror, hoping she hadn't woken up. She then looked at the man and cracked the window open the least possible. She didn't have a good feeling about him at all. She heard him saying that he was lost and that if she could come out of her car and let him use her phone. She told him she wasn't from around there and that she wouldn't be much help. She put her car into drive and the old man hit her window with a closed fist. She sped off and saw him shouting and waving his arms up in anger and stomping the ground where she was just parked. She kept driving and got on the freeway again. She kept looking back as she felt it wouldn't be long until she saw the old man in his old pickup truck. She kept thinking about the old man, and the more she thought about it, the more she got upset. If he needed directions, he could have asked the clerk at the store and used the phone there. But she didn't see the old man even go up to the clerk. He only went to the aisles and came back out. And then she started wondering if maybe that same man was prowling around the rental home she had to flee from. Sarah started getting scared. She was moving away from her mom, the one person who ever helped her in any situation. She was scared of starting over. She was scared of something happening to her, or worse, to Amy. Sarah got overwhelmed with her own negative thoughts and decided to stop at the next rest stop. She was just tired and stressed. The rest stop was 10 minutes away, so she had to calm herself down until she got there. Sarah turned on some music and felt better. She felt calm and at peace. She decided to skip the rest stop and to keep going. Sarah drove for another hour or so, and she started feeling her eyes were getting heavy, and she felt like she was driving slower than what she should be. Sarah searched for the next rest stop and found one 20 minutes ahead. She looked into the rearview mirror to see her daughter sleeping. She smiled to herself and pushed for another 20 minutes of driving. Finally, they arrived at the rest stop. Sarah parked in the parking spot right under the street light. She locked her doors, made sure everything was shut and closed, and she got comfortable in her seat. She set an alarm for 2 hours from then, and closed her eyes. After what seemed like 20 minutes, Sarah suddenly woke up. She checked on Amy, who was still sound asleep. Sarah sat up in her seat. Her alarm was just seconds from ringing, and it was about to be 5:30 a.m. She rubbed her tired eyes and drank some water. She started looking around the rest stop from her seat and only saw a Peterbilt truck parked far across from her. She felt it was safe enough to go use the restroom and leave Amy in the car for a minute or two. Sarah stepped out from her car, locked it up, and went to the bathroom. She quickly washed her hands and walked back out to her car. She noticed the Peterbilt truck was now gone, and before she got back in her car she heard laughter coming from the restroom. She jumped into her seat and slammed the door shut. She started the car and started backing up from the parking spot when she saw something move by the restroom. She stopped backing up and leaned into her steering wheel to get a better look. She couldn't see anything, but also couldn't look away. She scanned the area, and then she saw the corner of what looked like a truck's tailgate peeking from behind the corner of the building. She blinked purposely to adjust her vision, and the truck became clearer. She then saw the outline of a man move from the shadows and realized she was staring eye to eye with the exact same man from the gas station she had seen hours earlier. She stepped hard on the gas pedal and backed out and drove out of that rest area as fast as she could. She kept her eyes on the rearview mirror, but the truck never showed up. Sarah had an intense drive for 30 minutes or so, then she told herself she had to calm down for her own sake. The sky was a beautiful dark blue color, between darkness and sunrise. Sarah was frightened and on edge. She didn't know what to do or where to go. She fought the urge to turn around and drive back down to Southern California to her mom's house, but she didn't want to be followed by that man. She finally made it to Nevada's state line and felt at ease. Amy was waking up. Sarah stopped at a grocery store, got breakfast for Amy, and found a motel that didn't look too terrible, and finally got some sleep. That same day, Sarah reported the old man to both states' highway patrol agencies and felt she did everything she could about that situation. Months passed, and Sarah and Amy were living in a cute little apartment, and Sarah was really enjoying her new job and life in general. Sarah thought about the old man in the pickup truck from time to time, but she had sold her old car, and that was all he had to have known about her. Still, every now and again, Sarah would get weird feelings, and strangely enough, she would see an old pickup truck either drive by or parked off in the distance,